so lovely to be here tonight. What a beautiful life. Give yourself some round of applause. You're so lovely.
You've probably heard about the very controversial abortion law that just passed in the state of Alabama. Just to give a little background on the law pretty much bans all abortion, with the only exception being if there's an extreme health risk to the mother, or if there's an unborn child with a lethal anomaly. But besides that, abortion would be completely illegal. That would include rape and incest. And any doctor that performs an abortion in Alabama would be guilty of a Class A felony, punishable by up to 99 years in prison. The bill was actually written or sponsored in the Alabama State House by a woman by the name of Terry Collins. The bill passed the State House. It moved to the Senate this past week, where it also passed by a vote of 25-6, and all 25 people who voted for the bill were men. Now, in another twist, the governor of Alabama is actually a woman, Kay Ivey, and she signed that bill into law. And when she signed it, she said, and I quote, that this legislation stands as a powerful testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God. And the formal name of this law is the Alabama Human Life Protection Act. The Alabama Human Life Protection Act. Let's talk about the irony of that title when it comes to the state of Alabama. Right now, Alabama ranks dead last in education. So if you're a child or have a child in Alabama, your child, which they are supposed to love so dearly, is receiving the absolute worst education in the United States of America. Right now, Alabama is one of the 10 worst states when it comes to rate of poverty. So they have more men, women, and children living below the poverty line than almost any other state. They're in the bottom 10. Alabama is also in the top 10 for executions. They currently have over 180 people facing execution right now. They've killed 64 people since 1983. And in another piece of irony, or more appropriately hypocrisy, Governor Kay Ivey, in only 2 years of office, has signed off on 6 executions. As a matter of fact, within weeks of being in office, she signed off on a law that restricts or limits the appeal process for people convicted of a capital offense. And if you've paid any attention to the Innocence Project and seen the advent of DNA evidence and the amount of people that is exonerated over the years, you understand that people get wrongfully convicted all the time. And the appeal process is an important part of making sure that you don't execute innocent people. So by limiting the appeal process, Governor Kay Ivey is making it more likely that the state of Alabama will, in fact, execute an innocent person. But again, they just passed the Human Life Protection Act. The Human Life Protection Act. As a matter of fact, California has the largest amount of people facing death. But per capita, you're more likely to be convicted and sentenced to death in Alabama than any other state. And it doesn't end there, though, because from Reconstruction through the Civil Rights Act, the mid-1960s, Alabama had the third most lynchings in the country. The third most lynchings. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people who were murdered in the state of Alabama. And then when you look into reasons why some of these people were murdered, the reasons were all over the place, including for not using the correct term when addressing a white person, or one that's particularly vile, for black men wearing their military uniforms after World War I. These were all reasons why people were lynched in the state of Alabama. So in the state with the third most lynchings, top 10 in executions, the worst education system, the highest per capita rate of death sentences, they just passed a law called the Human Life Protection Act. Now, if we look into the law itself, most people know that because of Roe v. Wade, this law can't actually go into effect. It wouldn't even begin to go into effect for 6 more months. But even at that point, it would be tied up in court cases and litigation because clearly it's against federal law. But if you think this is just symbolic, you're thinking wrong, because Georgia also has a law, the heartbeat bill, that they're trying to pass. In Missouri, is about to vote very soon on the Stands for the Unborn Act, which also punishes doctors for abortion. So what you're seeing is a coordinated effort to overturn Roe v. Wade. And this is bolstered by the fact that the administration is intentionally putting people in the Supreme Court who are, as they describe themselves, pro-life. Me, I refuse to call anyone who is anti-abortion pro-life, because it has nothing to do with life. You just heard the numbers I ran down about the way human life is treated in the state of Alabama. Words matter, and I'm not giving anyone the moniker of pro-life when the only thing they are pro is having autonomy over a woman's body. Life has nothing to do with it. There's plenty of us who respect life and would love to see all the children happy and flourishing. These are not those people. And this has nothing to do with being pro-life. So again, the words you use are essential to propaganda working. So I refuse to call anyone who supports this bill or anything like it pro-life, especially when I look at the record of how they treat human life in general. I'll just say this. There are a lot of women who are very rightfully upset, as they should be, because the only people making decisions about what a woman should do with her body would be the women in question, and the people writing laws about what a woman should do with their body should be other women. Every law that's written about a woman's body should be decided upon by women, but with women's best interests at heart, because I know this bill was sponsored by a woman, signed into law by a woman. But if you look at the numbers, this is not what most women want. And I doubt it's even what most women want in the state of Alabama. I don't know that for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me. But what we're noticing is that a lot of women are rightfully upset, but some of those women voted for Governor Kay Ivey. Some of those women voted for the administration who was trying to stack the Supreme Court with people who will overturn Roe v. Wade. We cannot get into the habit of only stepping up and only getting angry when something affects us personally and directly. So that's why we as men right now have to speak up about the restrictions being put on women's bodies. I don't care if you're a single man who doesn't know your mother and you don't have any siblings, don't have any woman in your life you can relate to. You do know the difference between right and wrong, and you understand that this has nothing to do with protecting life. It only has to do with controlling women and, frankly, oppressing them. So we have to speak up when things don't affect us. We can't wait till it's knocking on our doorstep, till it affects us personally, before we choose to open our mouths. Because if we keep waiting, it'll be too late. But just going back to Alabama and the Human Life Protection Act. The state of Alabama has been showing us for years how they regard human life. More specifically, how they regard the human life within their own state. The time and energy that could be used to raise people above the poverty line, to decrease the mortality rate in women who give birth, to feed, to clothe the people in their state, to educate them, to have a fair and just legal system. If you think about all the ways in which Alabama could be protecting the people of Alabama, protecting their human life in a way that displayed actual compassion, none of these involve making a child have a baby from a rapist and putting a doctor in jail for 99 years because they want to protect that child from the crime that was committed against them. If we really care about life, we'll start by protecting the women and the children that will be inevitably affected by laws like this. And one thing's for sure, the people who support these laws, we can never, ever, ever call them pro-life.